Jack Della Maddalena versus Randy Brown. This fight was a really good look at how fucking good Jack Maddalena is. I mean, his boxing is so smooth, and whether they game planned this or whether he figured it out in the fight, it's still impressive, right? I talked about this like when we were breaking down the fight in my last podcast. When you're fighting a taller guy, in the UFC in particular, your best chance at victory, everybody says you have to get inside, and it's true. But really, your best chance at victory is... And you hear that get inside thing, I think, because of boxing. Everybody says that in boxing. When you're fighting the taller guy, you got to find your way inside. True. That if you want to go out and box the guy, you do have to do that, right? But if you're fighting a taller guy in MMA, a better path to victory is to push him up against the cage. Because even in boxing, if you push a tall guy up against the ropes, watch Muhammad Ali in that famous clip, how he's leaning out over the turnbuckle, right? You can still move your upper body out and away this way, right? And roll. When you get into the UFC and you have a cage around you, right? When you push a guy up against the cage, you take away a huge escape route for his head. You really limit his head movement, and it makes them, like, if the cage is behind me, I can only go this way, or just straight out, right? Those are my only options. So this is the arc that my head can travel in. Straight out, if I move straight out, or down, right? If I'm standing, if my feet stay stationary. If I start moving my feet, I can get out this way, even with my head. But I can never lean back like this, right? I can never lean away. And that creates a lot of problems, right? And that's why you hear get inside, true. But you see a lot of knockouts and you see a lot of very accurate power punches up against the cage because you've eliminated an escape route. The true path to victory for a smaller guy in fights like this is to move their opponent against the cage. And you saw Maddalena do that. And again, whether through game plan or whether through fight instinct and IQ when he got in there, it worked. And again, it's because you start cutting off their exits, right? And now when you bring that right hand, as long as you get out in front of Randy Brown, right? As long as you get that right hand out in front of him and beat his exit, he's moving this way and your fist is coming this way and boom, it collides. And it's a perfect fucking recipe for knockouts. Granted, Maddalena finished him, right, with a submission. He got on top of him and choked him out after he hurt him. But the way Randy Brown fell is the way a lot of guys fall when they get knocked the fuck out. He got hit with a really clean shot and he's lucky he didn't get knocked unconscious, to be honest. That's how you got to fight a taller guy. You have to pin them back against the cage, keep their foot behind the black line, and it creates openings for you, right? You have to use good footwork and pressure. You can't let them control space, right? Because it's hard to get inside. But in MMA, you have a pathway to start getting inside and landing your power shots with much more frequency and creating opportunities for a knockout, right? So it's like Jack Maddalena exemplified that. And how fucking good is this kid? I thought Randy Brown was going to be going to give him some problems, and he kind of did early on. He was doing a good job holding the range, but man, it just feels like Maddalena is on another fucking level. Like, to do that to Randy Brown is super impressive. Super impressive. Maddalena's got some big things coming up in his future, but crazy fight. Crazy performance from Maddalena. I mean, again, just did all the right things. Did the things that you have to do to beat the taller guy, right? And it fucking... I don't know, man. I don't know what to think for him. He's got really good boxing. His hands are super smooth. I don't want to jump the gun and start saying he's like championship caliber, but man, the kid's fucking good. Kid's fucking really good, and he has power in his hands. You don't do that to Randy Brown without being good. And he was a huge favorite. After I watched the fights, I thought he'd be like a minus 150, minus 175, and he was like a minus 330, and we got to see why. So fucking huge performance from Jack Della Maddalena. Super impressive.